tentative agenda?
I have not.
I have none.
I have none.
And next we have legal department heads and elected officials. Brandon Meemer, IT.
Nothing really new to report, just keep busy with projects and had a new guy starting here pretty soon this month, so.
Rodney Gleason, maintenance.
Good morning. A lot of stuff going on. Contractors working over there on the sheriff's parking lot, working on that east side. So they're doing a pour today and hopefully do the rest tomorrow. The rain kind of messed up a little bit of the plans today. They were planning on doing right alongside the building, but with our drain spouts there, they didn't want the water running on top of it, so they're gonna have to wait till tomorrow to pour that section and then the middle section. So hopefully at least get the rest of it poured this week, and then we'll kind of see where they end up from there, kind of cleaning things up, backfilling and do that stuff either later in the week or next week, I'm not sure. Other than that, we have a job opening posted, so if you know anybody looking for a job, we have a lead maintenance opening. So that's up till Friday, so you can go to the county website or job description and applications and our journals.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Kevin Glendenning, Sheriff.
Good morning. First and foremost, it's National Correctional Officers Week. Just a big thank you. Obviously, we're thankful for them every day, but on National Correctional Officers Week, we just want to say thank you for the work they do. Our correctional officers work in one of the most difficult environments, and it hasn't gotten any easier with transitions we've seen with the prison system, with mental health. It's getting harder and harder every day, but their dedication, the safety they provide, we're thankful for that, and we really appreciate them. Just a big arm of public safety, and we couldn't do it without them. So a big thank you to them. Last week, myself and several of us from my office attended civil school. That's kind of the annual update where we go over garnishments, transports, all the billing that we do on that, the work that Mary does in our office, updates on weapons permits, uniform crime reporting, those kinds of things. A lot of legal updates, a lot of information from the Attorney General's office. Really good information. So we're up there for a couple days and got some good information to bring back. Other than that, the jail this morning was at 24 out of county, 98 adults.
Alrighty. Janelle Nellie Lundquist, Treasurer.
Good morning. Our office mailed out delinquent notices or notice of tax sale. We put those in the mail Friday. There were about 1,470 of those that we mailed as required by code. So we're starting to see the phones are ringing continuously, and we're starting to see some of those payments roll in, which is typical. A lot of times that second installment, the March installment's forgotten. Even with all the news releases in the papers and radio, and they can receive email reminders if they sign up on our website for those. But yeah, we're keeping busy.
Alright, busy's good. Chris Lee, Conservation.
Good morning. We have our spring fishing thing coming up on May 9th. If you got some kids or grandkids who'd like to sign up for that, we encourage you to do so. That'll be a fun event. Other than that, just spring field trip season is still going on at your center. We're watching the river go down, so we'll be getting out, cleaning up some of the boat ramp areas that did go underwater. That it.
Thank you, Chris. Jared Lassiter, Land Use.
Just keeping busy with us as well. This time of year, spring, typically we get a lot of new inquiries and requests regarding minor subdivisions and then zoning permits in the 2 mile area. So we've had a fair amount of new conversations about that the last week, or last several weeks, but we have one minor subdivision on the agenda, and probably going to have one more next week, and it's probably going to be pretty consistent like that in the weeks ahead. So nothing else to report at this time.
Okay. County Attorney's Office.
He's looking at me, so I guess I'm on deck. So we're extremely busy, as I'm sure you're aware. One of our assistant county attorneys has left our office to go to Henry County, as has one of our victim witness coordinators. So we have those positions posted on our website. that has forced us to kind of reevaluate some case assignments. Because as you're aware, we still have 3 pending murder cases expected to go to trial this year. Rios, we do not know the date yet. I think we're hoping to get that scheduled sometime this week. Keyshawn Rice goes in June and Harper goes at the end of September. So trying to get her, and then Associate Court, they have, they're doing a new system. So we're trying to get ourselves acclimated to that. The judges have divided in Associate Court have divided their duties differently. So kind of just figuring out what the new processes are gonna be for the new judge. Otherwise, we're just staying really, really busy. We had a productive day yesterday, Kevin. We've had a couple productive Mondays. And when I say that, we've just ended a lot of cases and had sent several people to prison, I know that.
We had a couple on the list that were added this morning.
Pardon?
A couple on the list that were added this morning.
Yes, we had a couple. We actually have a lot of people who just spent so much time in jail, they're just ready to go. They're there on a probation violation complaint and they would just rather go discharge their sentence than stay on probation.
Wow.
Which generally, I'll speak for Kevin, we're more than willing to accommodate. So that's where we're at.
Alrighty. Sarah Marie, County Auditor.
Good morning. Primary election's coming up quick, so working at getting all the ballots and everything ready for each precinct, getting our workers set up, getting all the election equipment updated. Absentee voting will start the 13th here in the office. The last day to request a ballot to be mailed to you is the 18th at 5 p.m. But just plugging away.
Okay. Brian Carter, Secondary Roads.
Good morning. Just gonna run through a quick list of things. One, the dust control program got completed on Monday, yesterday. So that's all wrapped up and all treated. That's the annual program. As you know, we'll be working on Pleasant Grove Road this summer, probably late May, early June if I had to guess. So I'm gonna send out a letter to not everybody yet at this point, but some landowners where we're gonna do some full-length dust control as part of a anticipation of where traffic will be running once we close that road over in the Big Hollow area. So be a letter going out for that. Parking lot is moving along. I want to say thanks to Kevin and Rodney. They've both been available on pretty short notice to talk over little things that come up just to make sure what gets done down there fits them. It's a little different project for us where we're overseeing it, but it's not our parking lot and not our day-to-day scenarios, so they've been able to show up on short notice. I know they had a short notice meeting yesterday morning, got some stuff sorted out, so I appreciate their availability on stuff like that. Kevin's had a few calls from me too, so
Appreciate the communication.
I'm sure it's a pain, but we would rather do it the way they want it, not so much what we want. So, and I appreciate Devin's work on it. He's put a lot of time into it. So, legislatively, I might be the biggest topic that we don't understand yet. Sadly, I think the people that voted on it didn't understand it either.
Amen.
But the state legislators just passed a new property tax reform bill. That will, I suspect, greatly change the landscape over the long haul and probably reduce services over the long haul. I don't think there's any way around it from what I can understand of it, but being that it was so complicated that not a single group could put numbers on paper to replicate what its final results were. We'll see how that goes. I haven't had time to read it yet. Hoping to do that later this week. But that will be something, sounds like, to look at going into not this fiscal year coming up, but the following fiscal year. And then I will mention that, and I'll mention this again as we get closer. I anticipate sometime in June we will have a crack sealing job going on Mediapolis Road, west of Mediapolis. So I'm just an initial heads up, and I'll do this a couple more times, that when that comes along, it'll just be a one lane road. It won't be a full closure or anything. It'll be an inconvenience. So we're gonna seal that road back up. Other than that, there's all sorts of stuff going on, but I think that's the highlights.
Alrighty. Thank you for that. Brings us to a discussion and vote. First, we have accounts payable claims. $361,781.35 in checks, $235,594.21 in wire transfer payments for a grand total of $597,375.56. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Moved in second. Sarah Marie?
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Tom Brooker,
Yes.
Shane Campbell.
Next, we have resolution, final plat of the Robson subdivision. Anything you care to add on that, Jared?
It's pretty simple. It's a minor subdivision, kind of up by Kingston, between Kingston and Sperry. There's a 80-acre farm, almost 80-acre farm tract where they're splitting off 4 acres for building a house. And it has about 3-acre buildable area plus a flag lot stem that's 66 feet wide to connect with the road, and that's where it will coincide with the driveway with an existing entrance off of 188th. No major concerns brought up other than just we have the standard condition on the resolution that since it involves in construction of a new home, that they need to get septic permitted and installed and the proper procedures through the health department. So recommend approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Sarah Marie?
Tom Brooker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane Campbell.
Yep.
Jared, thank you again for getting that done, so we can look at it prior to the meeting.
Next, we have 5C, Class C liquor license, Class C liquor license, Flint Hills Municipal Golf Course, KG. No concerns, sir.
Motion approved. Second.
Moved in second. Sarah Marie?
Tom Brooker,
Yes.
Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane Campbell.
Yep.
The golf course looks pretty nice out there too, by the way.
Yeah.
They had that relay for life ceremony yesterday for that, or Saturday for that cancer. It was great shape.
Okay, next we have Class C liquor license for the Adams Wedding, Myers Wedding Barn, June 2026. KG?
No concerns there as well.
Motion to approve. Second.
Sarah Marie?
Tom Brooker, Jim Carrey,
Yes.
Shane Campbell.
Next we have 4 personnel actions, all 4 of them for conservation, so we'll do them all at once. We have Grant Swanson, conservation intern. He's a new hire starting May 19, 2026. New rate of pay is $16.50. We have Tanner Gephardt, natural resource manager. It's his anniversary. 42-month step increase. His rate was $51,771.28. His new rate of pay is $53,081.78 effective May 16th. We have Brian Havner, conservation tech. It's his anniversary. It's 18-month step increase. Previous rate was $45,533.78. His new rate is $46,533.78 effective May 12th. And then we have Kendall Coulter, conservation intern, new hire. His rate of pay is $15.50 effective May 19th. 2026. Can I get a motion to approve all four?
So moved. Second.
Sarah Marie?
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes. We have reports. Veterans Affairs monthly report, April 2026. This will be on file in the auditor's office. You can review it at your convenience. And then lastly, we have minutes for our regular meeting on April 28th, 2026.
Motion to approve. Second.
Sarah Marie?
Tom Broker?
Yes.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah.
Shane McCampbell?
Yes. Future future agenda items,
I have none.
I have none.
committee reports.
I have none.
Okay. Well, this is the time we will entertain public input. You can call in at 319-753-8282. The number again is 319-753-8282. You can email us at boardboard@dmcounty.com. Again, that's boardboard@dmcounty.com. Is there anybody in the audience that has something to say?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just had a couple of questions here. We had Highway 99.
Can you give us your...
Jeff Bernhardt, 11725 94th Avenue, Burlington. They redid 99, as we all know, and our road was just road milled, totally redone, cost over $4,000. They tore out the front of it as they poured their concrete with their forms. They came back and they put gravel in. Now, 2 years later, we've been patching that with gravel again. I've got pictures of it showing that they should have put road millings back in what we maintain as it was when they brought their concrete through, and it wasn't done. You go down through 99, you can see 118th Street, the road millings matched up with concrete off each side. If you look down across from Mr. Whitcamp's place, they did blacktop. So when they pull the semis out, they don't hit the gravel. So that's what I'm saying. I'd like to have them come back out, tear out the gravel, and put our road millings back in where they should have been. So we don't have to keep putting gravel in. Because when they pull it in and out, you're getting gravel on the highway. So if it gets in somebody's tire, it's gonna throw out, break a window, or could possibly hit somebody on a bicycle or anything. As you know, when you have construction with gravel around, you're gonna end up getting rock in the tires, and it's gonna be thrown somewhere.
Did you speak with Brian Carter?
No, he did not.
No, I did not. I would think when they inspect it, they could kind of come through and see what's going on. We just put road millings down. And as I say, you can go down through and everybody else is butted up to their old, to the new, and ours wasn't.
Okay, can I see the...
Can I see the pictures?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, they're on your phone. I thought you had a picture.
No, this is something else I like to do. I put up a pole building. I got this, if you'd all like to look at it. My place is, let me turn around right here. They had a boundary post set right here. I had a locator. I went out and tried locating any pins that I could. I came off the boundary mark, measured it. They told me I should stay 3 foot back. This boundary line was right about here with the post that was marked. So far, I'm okay, they said, but they said I should stay 3 foot back. Well, if I own this property here, I'm paying taxes on it. I didn't mean to put it there. If I knew I should have been 3 foot off the line, I would have done it. But when I see this pin over here that's 5 foot back, I was 5 foot off this property line. As I put up another shed out here, I've had 3 people come out during this time, taking pictures and looking at it and talking to me about it. So I wasn't real happy, because when you look at it, when I went down 3 years ago, got my tax recessed for senior citizen, we looked at this building over here that I would say is over 15 feet in our roadway. And then you guys started taxing them on that carport. Now, whoever does your inspection should have said, well, 3 foot, 2 foot, we can get. This is a roadway. I've had 4 flat tires. I add that up to $300 a tire. Because every time I pull off on the side of the road, whether it's this side or this side, I'm getting a nail on the outside of my tires that you gotta replace a new tire. I had a motorcycle tire cost me $300.
I'm not sure how what's the name, where are you getting the nails from?
I think the assessor's probably the one that's been out there. Have you been out there?
Well, if you have another car coming this way off 118th and hit 94th Avenue where I live, if you have another car approaching, you gotta kind of veer off to either side of the road. So when you veer off the side of the road, I don't know if somebody's putting nails over here, but the last one I got out looked like a chain link with a nail coming through it. I took the Robertson tires.
Those are all private roads, right?
Yes, it is. It's a private road. That's why we maintain it. That's why we put road millings down. And when we ran road millings up to the highway,
Yeah, I got that part. I'm talking
You
about
would-
what you're talking about.
yeah, that's all private. But if you see where it is here, they're taxing somebody for putting their carport in a roadway. So I don't know how you can tax somebody when we're maintaining a roadway.
You haven't talked to the county engineer prior to this, and I'm assuming you haven't talked to the assessor.
Well, that's kind of why I'm here. I talked to other people before. I mean, when you come out and get a permit, like I had to get a permit.
But to see if they have an answer, because apparently, I'm sure Mr. Carter is familiar with what happened there, but he can tell you that we screwed up, or.
Well, this was 2 years ago when I was in getting my taxes reassessed for being a senior citizen. They came back the following year, raised my taxes on a, not even an
Who was it that came out and looked at it?
It had to be the assessor.
You had to have 3 assessors out there. They couldn't pitch 3.
Assessor would,
Jared would have been there, another guy was out there, and somebody was out there.
okay, you were
3
out
of
there
them.
then.
Yeah,
Okay.
just for zoning, was to verify setbacks and all that.
Yeah,
so.
okay. Did you talk to anybody at Southeast Iowa Regional Planning about zoning or anything? And I'm not saying if you haven't, that's fine, but you need to talk to the county engineer about what happened on the entrance to your road. That, good question, I'm curious too.
Yeah, yeah.
He would be the one to discuss that with you and see what the remedy is or isn't.
All right.
And as far as the, what's being taxed, I would speak to Southeast Iowa Regional Planning and maybe the assessor about that. And they can address that particular situation and see what needs to be done, what does not need to be done. It's tough for us to just look at it, we've never heard of it right now and say this should be fixed. I think something should be done if it's as you say, but there might be, we're not familiar with this, and I'm not trying to be rude, I appreciate that, but I think you would be far ahead to talk to the county engineer, and speak to Jared, maybe the assessor, and if there's still a problem, come back and see us.
Well, that's the thing, when I was in here getting my taxes reassessed over 3 years ago, I put this pole building up, I was paying less than $52 per lot. It's not even an acre of lot, and now I'm getting over 3,000 some odd dollars I'm paying for that ground because I put a 30 by 30 on it. And they tried to tell me it's worth $25,000. Well, it was $10,000 through Menards because I got a rebate back.
I would be unhappy as well.
Yeah, and it come down to it, I'd done most of the work, and I had some buddies help me, and I paid out of pocket to do it, so where they came up with $25,000.
If the assessor did it, that was his estimate of market value, what it would sell for, whether it's a good assessment or not.
Well, it's up for sale now. If you want to buy it for that, I'm very willing to sell it.
You can certainly ask him that question, but if you would talk to those individuals first and see if you can get any of those things settled or fixed. If you can't, and you're still unhappy, then come back to the board and tell them you're coming back to the board and we can have a discussion here.
Okay, and that's when I was back, like I said, I'd get my taxes done, and when he seen this, he said, that's a problem with this carport sitting where it was, and how it's going on over 3 years, 2 years ago, whenever senior citizens went in, which was 3 years ago.
Something like that.
And then the following year, my property went up on my ground, and then the following year, my house went up. So, I mean, why even have us come in and waste your time, my time, to lower our taxes, and then raise them back up the following 2 years? I don't get it, when we have the highest taxes.
I'm not arguing with you, and I'm not, you know, telling you you're wrong for coming, I'm just saying,
Right, I understand.
it would be easier to address if we knew what was going on from the county engineer's
Okay, I
standpoint
get that.
and from the zoning or assessment standpoint.
Okay.
Well, I am not familiar enough with the assessment, that's, county's not in charge of that, he has his own conference board. The assessor's office is a taxing entity. They do not need the board of supervisors. We're one of their votes, the mayors are one of their votes, and the school districts are one of their votes.
Okay.
But imagine if you talked to Jared, he would be happy to explain, you know, say maybe you want to talk to me or the assessor or whatever. Was that fair, Jared?
I think so.
Okay.
And I had one other question.
The appeal period, the appeal window's just passed
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago for the assessments. So the assessor's hands are gonna be tied at this point for the but going forward, yeah, you could definitely have a look at it.
See, you ask them those questions and see if there's a logical or rational answer to that question.
Okay.
Then you and I would both learn something, and maybe there's not. But I would ask those questions from where those decisions came from. I would talk to those two gentlemen right there, maybe
All right.
the assessor.
Had one other question, I'll be out of your hair. What's the thing about people living on your property, tents, campers, in the county, 2 mile zone of the city we have? There was a guy lived on Washington Street in a tent in the city. They kicked him off because it was not right for him to live there.
Uh-huh.
So we're in the 2 mile zone still. We have people living where I'm paying more taxes than what I think I should be paying.
On
And
your
I've got-
property?
Yeah, I'm paying more tax than what I should be paying in Iowa, yeah.
No, but I mean, they're living.
They're not
on your
living on
property.
my property, they wouldn't have that. I did have a drone fly down around my house about 3 weeks ago, and I called the sheriff department and said, if anything happens again, contact me. But I'm not paranoid on that, but if they do it through the day, I'd be fine, but when somebody's flying a drone around my house at nighttime, I don't care who it is, I'll be like I'm a deer hunter, I'm going out and looking to see if I can't find who it is. You know what I'm saying? If they're trying to look at my windows and being kind of different, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want that around my house. Or up the street, there was somebody got in some young boy's house, and he had to get a gun out and take care of it.
I would not care for that either.
Yeah. But my question is, how can people be camping in your 2 mile zone of the city of Burlington, you still claim, that we pay taxes on, that we're in the county? Is it okay to do it? Because if it is, I'm gonna open my ground up for campers.
Everybody in the county pays county taxes. So if you live in the 2 mile zone, you don't pay city taxes. You pay the county taxes. You would pay the countywide tax plus the rural services tax. So you don't get treated or taxed any more or less because you're in the 2 mile zone. The levy's the same for everybody, either outside of a incorporated city limits. But I didn't know, somebody can't camp on your property if you don't want them, can they?
Well, not on your property.
No, I'm not
Absolutely.
saying my
But on their
property.
own property, they can.
They can.
Yes.
So that means I can open my property up for campers, is what you're just saying now.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, cool.
Anybody
wanna go camping?
We would have to look to see
Jared
where
would
you're
have
at.
to look, I do not
No,
know,
I'm
I'm
just
2 mile
saying,
zoning, treats opening for a camping.
If it's your own property and you have a house on that same property, it's just like, we're just talking about random people that.
Oh,
They're
I'm
invited
talking
to stay
random
there?
15 to 20 people
Okay,
that's
that-
actually meth heads. Yeah, so I'm talking, yes.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to you about that
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
You know, and it's got to be the point where one of them just got popped not long ago with quite a bit of drugs on them. And I don't need that up in my house where I'm paying taxes.
We arrest them on a very regular basis.
Oh, I know, it's
And-
every
And that's
day.
the truth. But there's nothing criminal about them having a tent on their own property.
Okay. How about campers?
There's nothing criminal on that either. Now, when it gets to the point of being like a dumping ground,
Yes.
there are some DNR regulations that we do and have investigated. We've been likely to the property that you're referring to. We've referred that same property. We've looked into it. There is a difference between people have the right to live in a certain way, but you can't create your property into a dumping ground.
Right, I understand.
So when it starts to be a trash pile and resemble that, that's different than a piece of trash in their yard. So you can't have a dump pile, and that's pretty much how the code works. And certain items that are restricted from dumping, tires, those kinds of things. But them having a tent in their yard, there's nothing criminal. I won't speak to potential zoning on that, but I mean, people can have a tent in their own yard, and that's not something that we would tell them.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Yeah, 'cause like I said, I could open it up for camping for my house too, because we like RVing, so it's like, if it's legal to do, it's, I wouldn't want to do something illegal, so it's like, I just want to do what we can, but appreciate your help. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you. Good luck. Anybody else from the audience? Allison, and then Rose.
Yep, Allison Moore Yarmouth. So I sent you guys an email a couple weeks back. The Iowa Supreme Court ruled in favor of Worth County over Worthwhile Wind. And I know at one point we had asked you guys if you would consider having a moratorium until we got the ruling on the Iowa Supreme Court. And I'm wondering now that they ruled in favor of the county, I'm really passionate about you guys establishing a setback zone for the Medforce at the Yarmouth School. I'm really wondering if you will reopen our ordinance so that we can establish a greater setback than it would normally have, so we can make sure that that can stay a designated zone for the helicopter to land. And, I think of myself, I think of the Coates family, the Tonkinsons. I mean, that's pretty crazy that we've all had to have Medforce, and it's an area with so much farming, and it's important that they have a place to land in case of an emergency.
I don't think you have to worry about that. At the end of a preliminary review, the board can make any request of them additional, and they have to comply in writing. They are well aware, we've discussed it in here before, you've sent everybody emails with the coordinates of that landing zone. I would be quite surprised if it just wouldn't already be on their plan when they get there. If not, there isn't a member on this board who won't ask for that.
Thank you.
Is Barb Sigworth okay this? We haven't
I
heard any.
mean, Medforce has made it a designated zone. It's been a landing zone. It just wasn't like.
But it is private property.
It is private
in
property,
town.
yes.
So they really need to go talk to Barb to see if that's okay, if they make that as they.
Well, they already have made it that.
I'd like to see something, where she signed off, said, yes, we could do this, but that's never been done.
No, it hasn't.
No.
I mean,
So
Medforce
that's
did
kinda
make
like
it designated, but I mean, I can
Getting the
talk to
cart
Barb.
before the horse a little bit,
Okay, I'll talk to Barb and,
yeah.
okay.
Rose Fisher.
I have, Rose Fisher, I have a couple questions. The first one is, sometime back we learned that there had been some sort of a complaint filed with the state about county road tours. I just wondered if you have an update on that?
The answer to that is no. And I've checked several times. It's been on the consent agenda for the IPIP board for the last several months. And there hasn't been any correspondence. So we gave our answer, and we haven't gotten a draft opinion from their attorney with the IPIP board. So the short answer is no, there's not been any activity. It's in their court. And it's unusual because normally they're.
Is that something that you would normally follow up on, or you just stay mute until they get back to you?
Well, yeah, normally they're in contact with us, and they look at it and they'll get us their opinion. And so I've looked, and I'm surprised by that. but it's been on the consent agenda, so it's not been discussed. Or if it has, it's part of that, so it's just out there. I can't imagine, again, this is, we're following what they recommended. Even when they came down and gave us a class, we specifically asked them, so, hey, we're doing this is how we do it. And that's how their board recommends that it be done. So I think we're okay, but, I don't know.
So if it's gone on so long and it's unusual, is it something that you could follow up on? Make sure it didn't fall in the cracks, or?
Well, I mean, it's on their list. I mean, I can shoot them an email, but
Okay.
I don't know, because I don't know what attorney's been assigned to it.
Okay,
So I don't know who to ask, because they have more than one.
okay. My other question is, I had heard that AES representatives were in town seeking meetings with current supervisor candidates and the current board. So I'm just wondering if anyone on the board met with them and if you have any update for us as to what's going on with the project.
I sat down with Evie for a little bit. She called me and said she was gonna be in town, wondered if she could meet me. And we sat down in there for a little while, and very little of it had to do with the wind ordinance. She talked about where she's from, I talked about where I'm from. And I asked her, and I really did not get a lot of information.
I met with Evie too, I think a week ago yesterday morning, and she just said that they're not ready to put in an application for permit yet, and that's basically all I got out of it. She said probably gonna be next year before they do.
I did not meet with Evie. Anybody else from the audience? Grizzly?
Couple things I should add in my department report. Our board meeting has been moved from, it would normally be tomorrow, we moved it to next week just due to some scheduling conflicts with board members. So that'll be next Wednesday at Nature Center. Tomorrow I'm giving a presentation for the F&M Lunch and Learn down at the Drake about the Partners for Conservation Foundation, so if anybody wants to hear about that, feel free to stop on down. And then that kind of ties into, so the property tax bill that was passed by both chambers hasn't been signed by the governor yet, as I understand it. I did go through it as much as I could. I did read a section in there that says starting, so when this takes effect, which will be July 1, so this will affect next year's budget, which we'll start writing here in about 6 months. It restricts the ability of counties to use debt service for insurance. So I just wanted to open up that conversation and ask. It says very explicitly that salaries and benefits cannot be paid for with bonding or debt service of any sort. So, and I understand that's how we pay for our insurance. So I don't know if you had a chance to look into that, or when we might be able to have a conversation around that, because just on first read, it seems like, all that cost for insurance, that's gonna go onto a general fund, which is already levy capped, and we've already maxed it out. Then something will have to come off of general funds in order to make up taking insurance out of debt service and putting it into there, which will be, that's an enormous cost, and that's coming directly off the service.
One thing I would add is general supplemental is not, they don't have the 2% rate cap. So insurance, employee benefits, they don't have that 2% cap, with the exception of EMA. EMA that runs out of general supplemental does have a cap, but they put like a 3% cap on EMA. So the way they landed is a little bit different, but general supplemental remains uncapped. So it is basically, with addition of some other items, their general basic that has a 2% cap.
Sure.
General supplemental does not have a cap, with the exception of EMA that does have a 3% cap on EMA board.
I read 2.5 summaries of that bill and was fairly confused as I read through it, so I'm not positive about anything. I did notice what you said about debt service, and but it also in there said something about that there was no cap on insurance and, health insurance and, liability insurance. But it's a little early, but if you're right, if more stuff has to come out of a capped levy, then there will be some prioritizing and saying, this has to come out, does it fit anywhere else? If not, but I'm not willing to say that right now without reading it and calling and ask for clarifications from 2 or 3 different people. Like I said, they didn't even seem consistent. They had some of the high points, but they described them a little bit differently. So I don't have an answer for you except your basic premise that that happens. That's what happens.
I called Matt Rinker yesterday, and he said as fast as they ran that through, he didn't even have a chance to fully understand the bill. So, but my request to this board would be the sooner we can have that conversation, the better, rather than waiting until we get to November and we kick off budgets, because that's not going to give me enough time, because we're already at the point, like just the 2% levy cap is going to force us to make some very tough decisions for next budget season. If we can start those conversations as early as possible to get a little bit of a sense for if that is going to further restrict at least what the conservation department gets from the tax base, the earlier I can have those conversations, the better. And so that would just be my request, is the sooner we can try to wrap our heads around that. And I don't know if maybe there's a need to bring all department heads together, kind of the way we do for the budget kickoff meeting, but do that maybe even over the summer, so that we can start wrapping our heads around what those implications are for this county, because, and I'm sure this probably goes for every department out there, the sooner we can start prepping for that, if services are going to have to be cut, if there's going to have to be some shell game of moving things around, at least my department, the sooner I can prep for that, the better.
Well, and is ISAC or some group like that, because we're obviously not the only government entity in this scenario, right? So is there somebody that's doing that research and gonna have that continuing education, or, I mean, there's gotta be something in there.
Typically, what ISAC, they did the last time, is they will have a couple, 3 people go through it, and then they'll have a meeting, probably in Des Moines, and, county representatives go to that, and they will go through it. They will miss a couple of things that will be brought to their attention at that time.
Sure.
But we'll get a better handle on how it exactly works, because I'm some of that stuff you read, you're concerned about it, and then I read something a little later, I'm not sure. It doesn't, just saying there's not a cap on insurance, but the only thing listed for general supplemental was insurance, election, and FICA and IPERS, I think, which it also covers court services. So, do they put a limit on court service? I don't know. Right. It's not clear enough for me to even venture an opinion other than it looked like I thought it would.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just the sooner we can have those conversations.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
A piece of positive legislation, in my view, the changes they made to the habitual offender code. So the House and the Senate both passed that on conviction of a 3rd felony, C or D felony, then the habitual offender code will automatically apply. Currently it's at 3 years, this moves it to 7 years, and it's a mandatory 7. When they say 3 years, it's still, you get credit for a good time, and you think.
Not anymore.
Right.
That got changed 2 years ago.
And you think somebody's gone and they're back before, whether it's in community-based corrections or some other means, but this 7 years, the way it's written, is to mean 7 years. There's a pretty significant fiscal note with that, so hopefully it does get signed, but it was passed both by the House and the Senate. That will certainly help where we're at on county corrections. We have a large number of our population is probation violations and parole violations, because it is a revolving door, whether they want to admit it or not, that's what happens. They do a very small percentage of their sentence. They get out on probation, parole, and then we end up dealing with them again and again and again. And this will hopefully give some people that routinely, habitually violate the law. So I'm excited to see that. I think it's a big piece of public safety.
One of Lisa's predecessors said one of the scariest phrases I'd ever heard since I was here. She referred to somebody as a county burglar. I go, what do you mean? She said, that's what he does. He was here. He said he was jailed. And he comes back and he goes right back out plying his trade again. So I
We
guess
have some people, I think, not to defend them, but we have some people who've been institutionalized from such a young age. I know Nick Baker has some experience with, you get people who maybe at 14, 15 years old were doing Eldora. And by the time they're 19 years old, they're doing prison, and that's what they know. So we do have some people, I can think of 2 or 3, Nick will probably know who they are, that literally once they get out, either discharge or parole, within 3 or 4 months, they're doing it again so they can go back. Because that's what they know, what they understand. But the unfortunate part is then you have the citizens who have to pay that price by being the victims of another crime. And those tend to be more property type offenses, not violent offenders. But yeah, kind of like Shawshank, sometimes if you've been, everything you do is regimented and then all of a sudden you're thrown out to make your own decisions, sometimes they like the structure of a prison setting. But those are few and far between. Most of them, I think Kevin's probably right. For a long, long time, 3 years was not 3 years. I could think of 2 or 3 right off the top of my head that had 3 years meant 3 years, they wouldn't have committed the new offenses they did. They got them sent for another sentence. So it'll be nice to see. The thing that'll be interesting is how the Department of Corrections, what they consider incarcerated. Because if you're you can be still technically incarcerated under their definition, but you're in their halfway house.
And then they violate, and then we take them.
And then they commit a new crime, or and then so that's a whole different, but I think the habitual offender is going to give teeth to the law. I think they're going to be.
Okay, let me ask you this, when a judge deems them guilty, do they?
Judge doesn't deem anyone guilty, the jury does.
The jury does, okay, well, when the judge passes the sentence, do they become the state property then?
What do you mean?
They belong to the state.
Inmates aren't property.
Huh?
Inmates aren't property. Are they the responsibility?
Responsibility, whatever, when the state takes control of them.
Oh my.
How comes we're paying, our county taxpayers are paying to keep them in a county jail when they don't take them to the prison where they're sentenced to?
They've actually really improved those timelines. I would say a couple years ago, those timelines were stretched out to even weeks at a time. Now it's usually within the week. Usually that week we can get them moving up there. They've done really good on that side. But that also means that they're restricting their population. So on the backside, they're removing the 3 we're taking up. They're paroling them and they're releasing them. That might be out into the community, or that might be to a residential facility. But they are controlling that based on budget numbers, and that's the truth. I mean,
But whether it's that week or 2 weeks or whatever, the taxpayers of Des Moines County, Henry County, or Wise County, they're paying for them when they should be turned over to the state.
yeah, I think the bigger problem we see is a parole violation. When we take them on a parole violation, but there's a co-occurring offense that we wouldn't typically hold them on, they won't reimburse on that. So it might be a PCS, a possession controlled substance, or something other minimally that they wouldn't be held on, but they are held on local charges and a parole violation. They're put on parole, we end up holding them, they won't reimburse on that. So there's been times we'll have 20 or 30 inmates that meet that standard.
Yeah.
I can kind of touch on that a little bit, just kind of give some clarity. So Iowa's one of the unique states where probation and parole is combined. You go across the river even to Illinois, parole is ran by the state, probation is ran by the county. And so here it's kind of mixed because we are probation and parole. So we have a probationer who's sitting in county jail, for instance. That bill goes to the county taxpayer because it's a county probation. When it's a parolee who gets placed in jail, the state does reimburse the county for the time that they're in a jail. It's like $55 a day, I think, or something like that.
For the pending parole violation. But what Kevin's saying, and he's right, is a lot of times that pending parole violation's a new crime.
Yeah. So there is, if there is,
then they're being held on hard retainer.
if there is local charges, then the county takes precedent because there's local charges that they're sitting on also. So, no, I don't disagree. I think that that process needs to be cleaned up 100%. So, I mean, I was the one that maintained that when I was in probation and parole, and so I'm well aware of the cost to the county that can be fixed on that issue. And anyway, that's a conversation for another day. But
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience? Okay. Well, we've definitely done our 2 minutes, so, with an eye adjourned.
Aye.
All right.
That's what I thought, you know.
We're gonna start our work session.
Not really.
We're gonna start our work session here. I do wanna give the rules of engagement before we get started. It's not time to be giving your magnum opus. We wanna get some information, and we wanna hear from you. Again, we wanna try to keep it to a couple of minutes. So, that being said, let's get this party started. Jared and Batman, you guys wanna open up or?
Really have I have some materials here for the discussion, but we don't really have a
Well, then
formal.
let's
Can I start with a question for Jared? And, I've talked about it a little bit, I know you were talking to somebody, like a state extension or something like that, about not being a zone county. So, is there a legal or a legally advised way to have a special? We already have one special ordinance, sort of a zoning ordinance with the wind turbines. So to create another one, is that just, I think it's probably a little more difficult than just saying we're gonna have a second ordinance, zoning ordinance. Is there a way to do that? Because the way I understand it, there is some legal risk in having too many of those. Somebody says you're zoned.
Right. Well, so just for some background here, we had this discussion several years ago when we were first talking about the idea of addressing wind and solar, and specifically that was when we opened up worked with the zoning commission to actually do an overhaul of the zoning ordinance back in 2021. And so when that was adopted in 2022, and we were approaching the point when it was time to go ahead with that, we had it was because it hadn't been fully overhauled in like 20 years. We were taking the opportunity to look at what are some trends in land use and development that are more recent that may not have been accommodated in the language from 20 years ago. And at the time, something obviously in other parts of Iowa and around the region that had been significant since then would be these large-scale utility wind and solar and also battery storage pertaining to wind and solar. So we had a discussion with the board at the time about that there are essentially how exactly will we address that? Because with the 2 mile area being the sole portion of Des Moines County that's subject to zoning, if you adopted a wind and solar as part of the zoning, then it could only be enforced within that 2 mile area. And so with that knowledge there, that was the concern, that if it was basically either we adopt countywide zoning and wind and solar is regulated as part of that, or we keep them separate and have a countywide focus for wind and solar, but keep the zoning at 2 mile. And so we then did some research on what else was, what had already been adopted in other communities out there in terms of how wind and solar was being regulated. And basically what we found is there was a mixture of counties that the most common form was through zoning as basically an overlay district for where wind and solar farms would be allowed. But then there were a number of other counties that had adopted a standalone ordinance specifically regulating the siting of wind and or solar. And most cases, those were counties that did not have zoning, and so they determined that was their option to regulate that independently. I believe there was at least one or two that, for whatever reason, they had zoning, but they still adopted it separately than that. But the key thing there is that we found that there was, whether even if it wasn't the predominant way of regulating wind and solar, there was still plenty of other examples of counties doing that, and so it wouldn't be the burden of Des Moines County essentially just being the first one to try this out separate from zoning. It was something that other communities had already done. And so that's how we ended up with this strategy in the first place. The challenge when we start talking about something like data centers or any other type of industrial type use that people may have legitimate concerns about, but in that case, I've been unable to find any evidence of other counties regulating that outside of zoning. Now, the key thing to think of though is that this is a rapidly evolving thing. I mean, data centers, even 5 years ago, was not really a primary topic that was being discussed. So this is something where even in the context of zoning, as of now, there still are a lot of counties that don't even regulate that at all. And most recently, I believe we had Lynn County just last year adopt an amendment to their zoning ordinance with a pretty comprehensive chapter addressing data centers. And I know there's been at least one or two others, but again, so basically it's not to say that perhaps another county might try to do data centers outside of zoning if that board of that county felt that was appropriate. It's just that as of this time, I'm not aware of any, so conceivably that would be essentially uncharted territory if Des Moines County wanted to do that. And not to say that would definitely be an issue or would be legally challenged. It's just it's not clear at this point. You'd essentially be testing the waters on that. So
I was gonna say the other thing, well, maybe two things to consider, but I don't know what the next thing may be, I guess, beyond data center, Bitcoin mining facilities, all these things, and to continue to just do individual ordinances for specific uses, I don't know is a great practice unless you're doing it through zoning, and that's really the intention of what zoning is. So I don't know that that's just a good practice to continue to do these individual ordinances for specific uses outside of that. But like Jared said, I mean, it's uncharted territory, you could do it and see where it goes. I don't know, I mean, you may have a different legal opinion on that, but that's the one concern I guess I have is just to continue to regulate uses in a form that appears to be zoning, but it's not.
So we could do, if you wanted to use home rule, so you have the option of using home rule or of using zoning, and there's either way. If you wanted to do home rule, we could have an industrial use ordinance. Now, again, if we do that, we want it generic enough that it requires notice and board approval, because Zach's right when he says we don't want to have an ordinance specific to, say, data centers and because we don't know what's coming next. 5 years from now, it might be underwater basket weaving centers. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, right? We don't know. None of us do. So one way to do it would be that. Another way is if you look at our A1 in our current zoning statute, that would probably regulate to what we have in the county. It allows for agricultural development. It allows for, single family residential. It allows for home occupations. There's a list on that, which we talked about one in 2021, right? But it could be just that simple, but then do people need to request a permit which so there's different ways to go about that. I think the reality of it is right now we have people coming in, or there's at least a concern of people coming in and taking farm ground out of production for industrial areas. And we already have a lot of abandoned industrial areas here. I mean, if we drive down the road here, we have Case, we have GE, we have all of the Burlington Northern grounds that haven't been used yet. We have the Dial building, we have the building just across the railroad tracks here on Main Street. What's that? I don't know the name.
Oh, that's the
Eastman?
Chittenden and Eastman.
Yeah. I mean, so we have all of these industrial areas already established that have been abandoned. And how many calls for service do you guys get? Well, do you or the PD or the fire? How many calls of service go to those places?
Yeah, I mean, plenty.
Plenty. So we have a lot of industrial areas already within the community. If people want to develop industrially, that exists. So that's something you guys can do, whether you want to do it through zoning or you want to do it through a home rule ordinance. we can do it either way. But piecemealing it out, eventually, if you piecemeal it out enough, long enough, then it does get to the point to where they could argue, why don't you have zoning, which then requires a much more involved ordinance, and things go to a zoning board prior to coming to you guys for final approval. I mean, there's some downside to that, there's some upside to it. So it's up to you guys how you want to go about doing it. You can do it either way, I think.
I just wanna make sure that, one, we're legal.
Yeah.
And two, that, that we don't keep, having to come back and, do another ordinance. Now, are you saying that we can add to the ordinance that we already have on wind and solar? Is that what you're saying, or?
No, I'm saying when you look at our current zoning ordinance, it's
Okay.
just within the 2 mile radius. If you wanted to extend that and have the county be A1, honestly, I think everything basically falls within A1. All right, at first I thought, like, do we want to make a special zoning district if that's the way? Do we want like kind of an AR, like an A1, R1? But really, when you look at our current A1, it allows for the residential, which is really, when you look at rural Des Moines County, we have this hybrid where if you drive around, whether it's like Danville Blacktop, Meepo Blacktop, Pleasant Grove, that Diamond Road, Iowa City Road, Yarmouth, where you have, it's residential along all of those main roads, main corridors, and then you have, cornfields for the backyard neighbors. That's just what we have. But I think our A1, it does allow for that. So that's an option if you guys wanted to go that route, which I think would, then if it allows for special use permits, if somebody wants to have an industrial use, they can apply for a special use permit, but that way it comes to the board to make a determination, and it's not all of a sudden we're taking 50,000 acres out of production for, I mean, and especially when we have places they can do it right next door that are already just abandoned industrial.
My big concern, specifically related to when we start talking about regulating industry as a category, that is a specific category that has been a component of zoning. I mean, when you look at the history of zoning in the first place, when it was first being established, and I think it was a little over 100 years ago now, the primary concern was industry and residential, and concerns that factories were being built right in residential areas in cities. And so the concern was, how do we make it so that they can coexist, that industry can be successful and it doesn't have a negative health impact on health and well-being of residents nearby. And so it's the idea is that those uses should be reasonably segregated from one another. But the way it was established ultimately is that in order to be equitable across the board for all landowners, is that in order to regulate one type of use in terms of like industry where it can be located, it has to be comprehensive in nature, that we're making sure that all uses are harmonious with one another. And so there's regulations that are put in place so that when development occurs, that it matches the vision for what residents of the community want to see. And so the concern there is that if we start saying, oh, we're only going to regulate industry, that seems like even if you try to do it outside the context of zoning, if it's just every kind of factory, every kind of manufacturing facility, then residential is just completely unregulated. That I don't see how that could possibly. And anybody that has something else outside of industry that a neighbor did that they have a complaint about, whether it be commercial or residential, that just seems like that's going to be trouble. So again, if we talk about data centers or similar types of uses, that's one thing. But if we're just saying any kind of industry, whether that would lump in the ethanol plant, gypsum plant or any other industry that might happen. I mean, it's rare for that type of industry to locate in the county, but if we're essentially taking that whole category and singling that out for, oh, this thing that needs permits, but everything else, if you want to build a new house or build an addition on your house, you just do whatever you want. Well, conceivably somebody could build right up to their neighbor's property line or even over it if they don't have a common understanding of where that's located. So I think if we want to regulate data centers with similar types of development, there may be a way of doing that, but without zoning, I don't think it's reasonable to say that we could just regulate one specific category and not another.
How do they define industry? How's that defined?
Well, that depends on the individual ordinance in a community, but like, let me just pull up what we have here for ours. Actually, I'm sorry, I don't have the ordinance with me, but it relates to manufacturing, processing.
I've got a few acres out in the country, and I'm gonna convert my garage and I'm gonna make pallets.
Yeah.
I think they don't make enough of them in Wapello, they still make them. Anyway, would that be industry?
I mean, if it's a manufacturing or a processing that's not just some kind of personal hobby that you're actually, I would say that. I mean, there's always room for interpretation on a given case, but I think the intent is that if something starts, I mean, a lot of industries start out that way where it's just a private person doing their thing and then it becomes popular and it grows. And I think that's a key factor to consider there. That's why home occupations are traditionally regulated, is that if something like that is to be allowed in a otherwise residential area, perhaps if it's limited to the extent that it doesn't have a detriment to adjoining properties, but if it has the potential to grow and expand, then that's one where that's how that's typically regulated in the context of zoning.
But in either context, we can define that. And how do you do it? Do you say industry employing, well, it used to be you would use employ, how many people are you employing, right? But now we're talking about a lot of industry that doesn't really employ anybody, right? But we can find definitions for that, whatever that may be, as far as we'd have to look to see, because there's got to be a way that that's been done. But that's a good question, because historically, once you look at number of employees or
once you get down to the number of employees or something like that, then it's a matter of personal. It's pretty.
There's a definition.
Get around to the actual defining line.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's under use.
You decide, and you said it like, and you've done that already in the 2 mile radius.
So our zoning ordinance defines industrial use as a use where the primary purpose is the manufacture, fabrication, assembly, there's a bunch of words here, assembly, packaging, and or processing of materials, or the storage of large quantities of materials or equipment that may be hazardous, noxious, or offensive to the general public if not properly stored, handled, processed, or transported. So that would include things like junkyards or just otherwise mass storage of materials like that. So not necessarily manufacturing. And that's how, again, part of this is that when we're talking about wind or solar farms or data centers, Bitcoin, we're looking at uses that may have industrial elements to them, but these are largely a more modern phenomena where these traditional historic categories of residential, commercial, industrial, civic like utilities, now we're starting to get some of these large scale facilities that are dealing with, I mean, it's a utility infrastructure largely how that is done, but it's understandable that when we, like, even in Lynn County, for example, they have a chapter regulating data centers. That's not seen as a traditional industrial use. They've created a special category for that they're regulating there because it has its own unique impact and considerations, same as it does for or wind and solar?
I remember the only contentious zoning issue in the 2-mile zone that we had since I've been here was about 15 years ago. On 99, there was a gentleman that wanted to build a small building to assemble some products. And across the road, there was a guy that was already in the business of making pallets. Well, everybody around there liked the guy that manufactured pallets, but nobody liked this guy. He was not very warm and fuzzy. So when we were approached to rezone or to permit that or give him a waiver, whatever it was, all these people were here unhappy. They said, you can't let him do that. But nobody was concerned about what if instead of just industry or something like that, what if we described an effect, something that affected local utilities, or I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, or something like that, rather than industry or a specific industry, something that it would require, I don't know, it's going to have a negative effect on local utilities or local this or local that. Is that?
I think a key thing to consider there is that the only thing that you're going to regulate is the impact on utilities. Because I mean,
well,
if we're talking about setbacks and lighting and just other things that address that development, the more things you try to regulate at once, the more it starts to look like a form of zoning. So if it's not restricting physically where it could be located, but it is, if it's coming from the place of we're concerned about energy usage and we're trying to understand that before such development occurs, and that's just me thinking out loud here. I don't know if that's the best idea, but
with the wind and solar,
right.
We're going to say, we've got this for public safety, we've got this for nuisance, all these different things. The rules are in there. I guess I'm just wondering, maybe it's bad, it just occurred to me, if you said if this particular industry or this particular business or endeavor, has a negative effect on these 3 or 12 items, whatever it is, that we want to regulate that.
And then the question is the key thing is how do you define where do you cross the line from no effect to effect? Because this is going to have to be addressed legally. That there's something that does qualify, and then there's something that doesn't qualify.
Yeah, you and I will disagree on that.
Yeah.
Allison Moore. Could this be a ballot issue where we take it off the hands of you guys? And I mean, I've heard of counties just saying banning no data centers. And then we don't have to worry about the effects on utilities and
I'm not
water.
but I don't think zoning or something like that, I don't think they have a ballot on that. Quite honestly, if you were going to have a ballot, if you took that wind ordinance to the ballot and you went through line by line, say, I don't want that on the ballot, but I want this on the ballot, then that would be a possibility to go through something. A ballot needs to be a yes or a no.
I know, I'm saying specific data centers, yes or no, do we want them in our county?
I don't know whether that could be. Trent?
So the answer to that is not exactly clear. The procedure is very clear. That if somebody wanted to petition to have something like that added, they can petition to have it added as long as that's turned in timely. And then the question is, does it get challenged or not within that time period? If it's challenged, then that's a legal question between the person or entity that challenges it and the person or entity that's bringing forward that ballot initiative. So the county's position is we're kind of agnostic as to that. But generally they look like, if you wanted to have a ballot initiative about the organization of county government, as long as you're not changing any of the constitutional or state code rules, right? You can do that. So say if you wanted to go from a 3-person board to a 5-person board, that clearly, yes, that can be on there. If you're getting to more specific questions, the answer is that's up to the court if a ballot initiative is challenged. Now, one thing that's clear, like Tom said, and you're correct, is that you can't have an ordinance as a ballot initiative. It can't be complex, it has to fit on the ballot. So the question of can you have just one item like that, say if you wanted to ban data centers, petition, put it on the ballot. I think from the county's position, we're kind of agnostic as to that. And if it's challenged, then it goes to the court, and then it's a question between the challenger and the proponent. So, and I don't know. It's not clear to me when you talk about those things. There's just not a lot of information out there on those. Where you have, hey, there's this one element that we want this county to be added to our charter. That hey, we're not going to have this.
I think it's happening.
Good.
I just wanted to, again, getting us back to the topic of zoning in general, that zoning in Iowa is specifically regulated by Iowa code for both cities and counties. And while each community has the right to implement its own standards and principles for what it does or does not regulate in the context of zoning, there are certain things that apply to every community. And part of the key thing that ties all that together is the aspect of public input and ensuring that what is enforced is consistent with the public interest of that community. And so basically it's structured so that zoning needs to be in conformance with a comprehensive plan, and a comprehensive plan is developed based on looking at the county holistically, at how the county functions today, and in terms of land use specifically, how land is being used. And there's an opportunity to engage with the public, do surveys, get an idea of what the consensus of the community. I mean, obviously there's going to be disagreement, individual people, but if there's a clear mandate to do some sort of policy or not, then the comprehensive plan is a way to identify that, so that so basically that's a way of compensating for it's not something that's directly voted on by the population. It's something that is addressed interactively between the officials and the public, and how they gather that feedback. So that's how I'm just giving you some context how that functions in the context of zoning, and why whether you decide to go with zoning or not, it does have a structure to it that's set up in state code that's built into it that will be reliable, at least from the official perspective, that there's a way of addressing these concerns, and if changes need to be made, they can go to do the proper procedures for doing that. So,
Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy Lamb, the Hawkeye. 2, maybe 3 questions. First, who your 2 mile zone around, and maybe Jared, I don't care who answers it. The 2 mile zone around Burlington, is that a city ordinance or is that a county ordinance?
that is a county ordinance.
That's a county ordinance. All right, so my second question is, since you already have that, can they expand that by rewriting the ordinance and having a first, second, third reading, or does it have to go to a vote of the public, or can the board just have is that a legal function of the board to do that?
To have a public hearing and to expand
without taking it before a vote of the public.
But the key caveat that there is that passage in the state code that says
Is it
that the
possible,
zoning
Jared?
shall be, what?
Is it possible? Is that legal to do? That was my question.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
But
Thanks.
to build off of what Jared was saying a minute ago, that's where the comprehensive plan comes into place, and it would probably be a good idea before, because I was gonna jump in here earlier when Trent was talking about expanding maybe the A district countywide. I mean, there's a process to updating the ordinance, updating the map, and probably before you do that, it would probably be smart to come back and evaluate your comprehensive plan, because it's been over 20 years since it was last updated. I mean, it's something we discussed when we actually first started doing the wind, solar, battery, or wasn't battery at the time, 2022. That was one of the things we brought up at that time too, is it might be a good idea to evaluate that at that time and update the comprehensive plan. Wasn't necessarily necessary, but it seemed like it might be a good opportunity at that time to do so. But I think if you're gonna expand the zoning beyond the 2 mile boundary, I think you would definitely wanna take that step and initiate that before you go and
Can we have
expand that boundary.
Can we have a moratorium on this until we figure out how we want to proceed? You know, give us time to take a look at the comprehensive plan and you know what I'm saying? You know, so that.
I think a comprehensive plan is gonna take a number of months, and zoning, if you're gonna rezone the whole county, whether you're expanding that one or that, you're not talking about a short period of time or less than a few dollars. It's gonna be expensive and time consuming. Because like you said, we'd have to update a comprehensive plan. The state's got a process for all that and zoning. And I'm pretty sure there's portions of the county that will not take kindly to some zoning regulations.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, and that's why I said there's options. You can do it all through zoning, or you can do it with the home rule ordinance, on just industrial development. And, I don't think we're there as far as, are we to the point where we're forced to say that we're zoning? That's essentially two uses, which is really one and the same. Because yes, when we talk about renewable energy, that's a specific industrial use, but it is an industrial use. It wouldn't necessarily be subject. I suppose it could. We'd have to. Either way, you know, all of these, we would have to look at the whole of our legislative makeup, but we could have an individual standalone industrial development ordinance. And we could have a moratorium. I mean, that's one thing that came out of the Worth County case is Supreme Court thinks that it talks about moratoriums as a legitimate government process to be used while they're going through doing the legislative work. I mean, the Supreme Court was very favorable to moratoriums in that case, that they can be used as long as you're in the process of making legislation on a subject. So yes.
Let me ask you this, Trent. Sitting here to listen to everybody talk and everything, one of the biggest concerns is setback on a residential. And nobody in here will deny that. Is there any way that you could just have an ordinance or incorporate it in with the one we've got now? That any industry that comes in that's like industry like that, it has to follow the same basic rules and setbacks as the ordinance we got. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
And that way, it lets this farmer out there that's got that 4,000 acres you're talking about, let him do with what he wants to do with it. That's where I'm coming from. When you put something in there like that, and not let him do what he wants to do with his own ground, I can't buy that. Because we got people that would like to tell Tom not to put a windmill up on his ground.
Right.
but Shane wants it. And, you know, that's what this whole thing's about. It's about people that don't want stuff and making it tough on them.
I think though that the issue, maybe I'm wrong, I think the issue on data centers is, that I've heard is mostly utility usage.
Yeah.
It runs up, and it doesn't matter whether they're 5,000 feet from you or 3 miles. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think that's the.
Brian,
You're right, Tom, on that, that's
Can you give
the
us your
house
name?
usage. I'm sorry,
can you give us your name?
Brian T. But it's also water usage and even square footage. And, you know, there's things that are happening right now. I don't know if people know it or not, but Alliant has 152 acres in Middletown that they have shovel ready, is how they're advertising it, for anybody to come in and build something. And so this could be another surprise that could happen. And it's all over the state. They're buying land all over the state and doing things. And so, you know, and I agree with Trent, we shouldn't just be specific on data centers. You know, we should be looking at what we can do to prevent any other surprise. What'd you say, underwater? But there's, I think there's an opportunity here to create something that, because I live in the county, I live in the country, and I know that, what is it, 335.2 protects agricultural land. So I can, whatever ordinances are passed, I can still, because I live on a farm with a legitimate agricultural practice, I can build a barn or something without the ordinance impacting that. So really what we're looking at is, like Jared talked about, the 4 acre subdivision. That person who wants to move out into the county, build a home, and the people in between that are, you know, wanting to use this land to do something that may impact their neighbors or impact wildlife or impact our natural resources. And so I feel that there could be a compromise of not creating zoning for the county, but creating an ordinance that gets us what we want, which is still has the rights of the county that we currently have, that we enjoy, but yet also regulates what can and cannot come in. And you know, the Worth County example, you know, they said that you could put a moratorium on an act. And they also talked about vested rights without a permit. And so I think some of that needs to come into play with an ordinance that is created to get the results that I think we're hearing people say in here today that the county wants.
Mr. T brings up an interesting point. Does the county ordinance have any effect on federal land? In other words,
No.
we
don't have jurisdiction.
If the IAP says we want to put in a data center, we say you can't.
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't have jurisdiction over federal property, yeah. Okay.
But anywhere outside of that, anywhere else in the county.
Right. Yes, sir.
Niall Shade, Mediapolis. I'm just going to tack on to what Brian was saying. He mentioned the water. Scott County already has an approved data center permit. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, a data center of the size in Scott County is going to pull 3 to 5 million gallons of water per day to cool these processors. Now you think about that, what happened, we're close to the river and everything, but if we start sucking that much water out of the ground for a data center, what's that going to do to the individuals' houses and our water? And that really has to be considered. That's a horse of a different color because we all need water to survive. And if all of a sudden farmland goes dry or residential, live in Mediapolis, we don't have any city water, there's a problem. So I just wanted to bring that. But Scott County already has an approved ordinance, and maybe it's worthwhile looking at that. They've not acted on it. I don't know if they're going to or not, but the county supervisors approved this. So just word for the wise, it might be worth taking a look at. But we cannot underestimate the water usage in this, because we all need water to survive.
Cindy. I'll get you next year.
So, all that water, can we even make that much water? Can our water plant handle that? Or does that mean we need a whole new water plant?
We need a lot of rain.
You need a bigger
Eric was next.
Oh. And second of all, I mean, like Tom said, this is, whatever we're gonna do is gonna take forever. So the most important thing right now is to get a moratorium. I mean, that sounds like the simplest thing to me to do, because they get in and you don't even know they're getting in, just like the bid thing. So I beg for a moratorium, tell everybody can figure out what we need to do. Okay, that's.
Thank you, Cindy. Eric?
Eric Gears, Middletown, Iowa. Per the email I sent you guys all a week ago, I do encourage the moratorium, just like probably everybody here. The question that I have is, can you guys attack this from a public health standpoint? There's more and more data coming out on what these are doing to public health, whether it be with low-level noise lighting. There's just a whole multitude of things, not to mention the water that everybody hears or people here have discussed already. And pulling out of that underground water system that we have and lowering the water table on our farmland is going to make the farmland less productive or productive. So I'm just wondering if that would be an option to attack it from, as opposed to the normal just creating an ordinance thing. While that may be part of it, and should probably be employed, just throwing out an option, that it might be something that would require a look at, and I hope you guys do.
Betty Young, I'm concerned, what are they gonna do with their wastewater? Is this water gonna be recycled and recycled and recycled, or are they gonna use it once and then it goes into where?
I don't know how these things operate.
I can answer some of your questions and Cindy's. So first off, we think of the river and that would be a natural place to draw, but the best place to draw is from underground water, especially deep, because it's cooler. And the reason why we use so much water on data centers is because it's not a closed loop system, it's an evaporator system. And so they have like belts over heat sinks, and they run the water over these, and then it's an evaporative process, much like sweating is a cooling process. And so a lot of the water, most of the water actually comes off as a vapor. But with that, the solids remain behind, so we're pulling, everybody knows that well water has minerals in it, and so those minerals end up being left behind, and so then they do a flush system on that, and that typically will go into the city sewer, or whatever, if it's out in the country, out in the county, there would have to be some sort of a disposal system.
Big septic system.
Yes. So, but for the most part, all the water that's used evaporates. And so that water's, it's not gone, it goes up into the atmosphere, hopefully comes back down as rain, but it doesn't come back here. And the other thing is, like, the Jordan Aquifer is an ancient aquifer, and in our lifetime, we won't put water back in it and we take out. It is, they say that the water in there is tens of thousands of years old. And so, but that's the best place to get it. And that's probably where they drill to.
So does that mean then that when it evaporates, it's gonna be air pollution?
It evaporates as just water vapor. And so any pollutants or any kind of solids that are not even solids, but minerals that are in the water are left behind. And then they have to periodically flush those out to keep from buildup. If you've ever had like buildup, if you live out in the county and you're running off of a well, you might have mineral buildup on your faucet or something. That's exactly what happens only on a much larger scale.
Yes, ma'am.
Linda Schneider, it's a little bit older history, but I used to work at the waterworks. When you drive by on 99, those ponds out front, that's where they end up hauling off lime. That some of that would be set up. The other thing is, when they did water capacity, when the ethanol plant came in, that was a big deal for just having enough. I don't remember the details of how they worked it all out, but I know it pushed the limits. And you talk about these data centers that take so much more water, taxpayers would be on the hook for building the infrastructure. And there's not a lot of return with jobs. So there's a lot of upfront costs that you don't get back, because when they did the fertilizer plant in Lee County, they were in such use of water, they tried to talk us into piping water from our water plant. They were willing to pay for that, because water is at such a premium. We didn't have the capacity or the desire to do that. So I just don't think your capacity would be there. I think you'd end up building a brand new water plant, among other things. We buy right now from Centerville out at Lake Rathbun. You know, when you get those reports in the mail that they used to email or used to send, and they now get online. But our water comes from a wide area. We purchase a lot of water.
Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brad Coates, I guess, listening to all the concerns and stuff and some suggestions, and I mean, Jim and everybody's making suggestions. Can you explain the process to put a moratorium in place just to figure it out? Whatever the answer is, I don't think anybody here can say this is the answer. But whatever the answer is, what's the process to just throw on the brakes so we have a good solution?
I think that's Trent.
Yeah, I mean,
He was one thought we'd have a moratorium, so if you can, how do you do it?
we just put it on the agenda and have a vote. I mean,
Is a resolution you mean?
yeah.
So, and that's enforceable.
Yeah. As far as a moratorium, I mean, I could do a double check, but I think all of our moratoriums have been via resolution.
Well, they've been a resolution on this moratorium while we are actually working on the ordinance, but we don't know yet whether we're working on ordinance or zoning or what. And I was gonna ask what Brad did, or what would be what's it look like? I mean, if we're gonna have a moratorium, we want it enforceable. And so it's gotta have that mechanism. It has to be, we have to find a way what's going on. I mean, what if somebody has already gone out there and bought 1,000 acres or whatever it might be, and is deep in planning this? And I have no idea. I would be surprised. But so that's I guess what I would like to see is what that document would look like. How it would be designed.
As far as a moratorium?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could put together a moratorium on industrial development in Des Moines County. I mean, it's not even complicated, really. I mean, it would just be, do you want language on that next week, or?
I would like to see that. Just to put my own heart at rest is exactly something we can do that's enforceable and doesn't put us in any liability for anything. So yeah, I just like to see it, and then we can, because I think zoning would be a huge expense of time and money. An ordinance wouldn't be quite as much, but a moratorium could, if that's possible.
Sure.
That's a quick Band-Aid.
Right.
At least give us some time to get our hands around it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to study the legislative process of regulating industrial uses within Des Moines County. I mean, yeah, we can do that, and we can do it for a period of time. We could do it until, and I think we'd have to do it for a period of time as an initial construct, because if we say until an ordinance is in place, well, what if we decide we don't want to do an ordinance, we want to do so I think it would have to be a period of time, and it could be, I mean, we could go all the way up, as far as you want, but we can set a period of time for 90 days. We can say until after the election, if you think we want people to have a say. We could do it, I mean, it's up to you guys, but that can be done via resolution. And it's not uncommon to see 1 year moratoriums, and if we think it's gonna take that long, that way we're not looking at one every 30 days, redoing, because you love redoing them every 30 days, don't you, Sarah?
I do.
Yeah.
Just,
Gives me
just
something to do.
I don't see anything wrong with putting at least a year moratorium on it because of the noise expenses.
Okay.
just what I listened to today, there's all sorts of questions asked that I don't have any idea. I don't know, we would, if you're gonna have an ordinance, something, you're gonna wanna get both sides of the story. You're gonna wanna say, there's this has happened, that has happened, this has never happened, whatever.
Right.
But there's a lot of work to do, so yeah, but if we can put a moratorium on without having an ordinance or something like that, and that's enforceable, I'm good with that.
So, if I could add, first, I agree with the moratorium based on the reasons we're here talking about this. Where my concern comes from is what happens with the pallet builder or that person in the broad description of industrial, and what happens with that over the next year. I'm wondering if that moratorium could be based on what we're talking about and be it based on energy usage, water usage, sewage usage, so that we're not going so broad as to all of industrial, because I think that becomes.
And I was gonna bring that up too, because we are aware there is an industrial, I won't say who it is, but an existing industrial user that's been here for at least a couple decades it's outside of our 2 mile zoning boundary, but we're aware of an expansion thing that they're gonna be doing.
Yeah.
So you don't wanna,
No.
I think that's kind of what you're getting at. You don't want somebody that's.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like the smaller projects
So-
that this would really encompass, and there might be some bigger projects, but.
So in that zoning ordinance that we went through in 2021, one of the things we had in there was, it talked about home businesses. And so
Excuse me, I misunderstood you. What kind
talked
of business?
about home businesses.
Home businesses, okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I think if we look at that, we might already have some language, but there's definitely some language out there if we're concerned about what the definition is, that we can pull a definition of industrial, as far as scale. Is that what you're saying is the concern?
What if we listed data centers? That's where you might have others, and then there won't be any argument about somebody if you just say, this is for data centers.
Okay.
And 6 months from now, we find out, whenever they build a data center, they build a XYZ attachment to it, and it needs to. But that way we can get something quicker without having a negative effect on citizens or existing businesses.
I want to, related to, if we're looking at the broad category of industry, it's important to remember that within that 2 mile area, there is an industrial district. So the industrial uses are already regulated in that area. So if that was the direction you wanted to go with, I think it would be very important to clarify that we were talking about outside of that 2 mile area, because there's already a process in place for regulating in that area. But if we're talking about a specific category like data center, which isn't defined in the zoning ordinance too,
I like data center.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Bitcoin mining is there.
It's already there.
Thanks, Zach.
So, I agree with Kevin that, focus on something that doesn't restrict, but like for small businesses, like what was mentioned here, but also Jared mentioned that the voice of the county is part of the process earlier, and I don't think there's any complaints of those small businesses that are currently in existence. I would caution against just going with data centers, because cryptocurrency could also be a huge demand on water and utilities. And then, Tom, you talked about, what about what's already in, maybe started that we don't know about. And, I'm gonna defer to Trent because I'm not a lawyer, but the Supreme Court decision with Worth County basically said that a entity doesn't have vested interest without a permit. And so if they are knowingly, basically it says that they're knowingly spending money and essentially taking that risk without permit. And the county could create an ordinance or something and stop them even though they've invested money. It's a risk that they take. And I'm giving my own spin on it, but it's, I think I'm pretty correct in how I'm interpreting that statement.
You're talking about a moratorium?
No, I'm talking about, you asked if we created a moratorium right now. What about somebody who may have already started something?
Uh-huh.
And the Supreme Court decision basically said that if they've already started something, they're accepting that risk. And if the county comes back and creates zoning or an ordinance that is against what they started, they don't have vested rights in it. Is that correct?
That sounds like something that should be put in there, Trent, or a way to do it.
I don't think it has to be put in there. I think that when, you know, essentially what Worthy Wind was trying to get a vested interest in the Worth County case was essentially a concept, right? There wasn't anything actually built in the ground. So, say if somebody's planning to, you know, make an underwater basket weaving facility, and they've got all these plans drawn up, and they've, you know, maybe bought land to put this in place, but they don't have that facility, then there is no, they're not grandfathered in because they haven't built the facility. So they don't, you know, they don't have a vested interest in that planned project. And his analysis is right that that's, the speculative is the language they use, that's what the courts have used. They call that speculative. So I don't think there's a concern about the county having liability
A
to some.
moratorium does that, if we say that
Correct.
you can't do it. And these people were continued, they'd already, we didn't even know about it, but the county did something, so they don't have a vested interest.
Right. And it really talked about, it didn't expressly say, but it kind of contrasted. So in Worth County, there had been a previous wind development, and they didn't have to because there was no ordinance, but they did go to Worth County and seek permission, and then they had a statement that they passed in support of that previous project. And so it did reference that they had, you know, that previous developer A, can't remember the name of it right now, but that first developer did go to the board in Worth County and get not necessarily permission, but it got like a statement of support. And so the fact that, yes, you're right, that the board, you know, if somebody's out there doing something that we're not aware of, we can't be held liable for regulating something we're not even aware of, right?
Even if you are aware of it.
So,
Yeah.
So, again, to avoid redundancy, can you prepare us something that we can take a look at?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Then let us, you good with that, Tom?
Perfect.
James?
Yep.
Okay.
What's, just to be clear, what's that moratorium going to reference? What's the scope gonna be? Is it just data centers, is it data mining, is it any industrial projects?
I think it's, well, I mean.
I think it's data centers.
Data center right now.
Okay.
Data center.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Can
Brian?
I would like cryptocurrency mining to be part of that too. I think those two kind of go together because they both are typically high energy and high water usage.
Here we've got one that apparently doesn't use any water because they don't have a well. They have I don't know what I think they use oil to lubricate it. They have a porta potty out there that they have serviced weekly or every other week, whatever it is. They don't use water. And from what I heard from public health, she went out there and she said there wasn't the noise. And I realized they use power, but that's their input. So it's my understanding those places usually look for places where there's an excess of power or whether there's a surge pricing. In other words, it's cheaper sometimes of the day than others. From what familiarity I have with that particular operation, it doesn't match all the things that I've heard it was.
Yes, Kathy?
Kathy Wunderlich. On, I think sometimes on crypto and some of that, my understanding lots of times is they do a different thing with utility companies. They can be shut off for a while and restart, where your data centers have to be running all the time. So I think your moratorium's a good idea to look at some of this information, because we're all trying to make an idea that works for everybody, but nobody really has the whole concept of how it all works.
You're killing me, Brian. This guy's killing me,
I
man.
did want to respond to Tom's, they, on this one out here, they have what they call a closed loop system, where they are recycling that water. But a larger system, a larger operation may not use that. And the closed loop system also requires power, because they've got to cool that water down before they run it back through again. And so the larger the system becomes, and this one is pretty tiny, but the larger the system becomes, the more impact it has on both power and water.
And just so you know, the closed loop system is not actually closed. It's not closed. Okay, so it could potentially have a health risk.
Wunderlich?
I guess I didn't state it correctly. I was wanting to do what Brian wanted. I wanted to put crypto and Bitcoin in with the data centers, because I think you're still kind of on the same line with things, even though with utilities, I do think they use it a little differently than data centers do.
And I just want to be focused. I don't want to get it too wide and broad. I want it, so it's this and this, that's this.
But both the things we don't understand completely.
There's a
So-
lot of things I don't understand.
Right, so I mean, I'm just saying.
You can't put a moratorium on all. But
if you did,
you can revisit them and have a functioning society. I guess, and whatever the board wants, but I would like it to be pretty focused. So it doesn't, like the industrial, like Kevin said, the farther afield you go, the more likely you are to interfere with something else.
That's true.
Rose Fisher?
I just wondered if the moratorium language would say none, absolutely not, or anything that's large scale, commercial, has to be, I mean, I don't know.
Oh, I don't either. I'm just saying, the more you expand and define stuff, the more stuff that either sneaks in there that you don't intend to cover. I would like it focused, but that's just me.
Cindy was next, and I'll get
The common denominator isn't that we don't want them, we don't want anything that takes up all our power and all our water. So is there any way to phrase it that way?
We
Not
talked
data
about that
center.
if we have an ordinance rather than saying data center, to say anything that uses so much like utilities or water or something like that. And I think we moved away from that.
Well, that covers, it'd be more protection. That's the key thing we don't want. We want to keep our power. We don't want to have our power, our electric bills soar like that's what happens, and we need water. So, you know, if Joe Schmo over here wants to do that underwater basket thing, he's fine, because he's not going to use, well, he'll use water because he's underwater. But he's not going to, you know, use the excessive amount of electricity and water. So wouldn't that be a safer way to cover what you're really interested in? And not be specific.
Right.
Well, if you're gonna be specific, if you're gonna say, you know, we got a moratorium on anybody that uses so much water, how much water is that?
Well, these are excess, I mean,
Well,
you can pick a number.
excess is a pretty subjective term.
I think,
Well,
yeah.
that's
You're
why
gonna
we're
need a number.
brainstorming.
You're gonna need a number.
We just need a moratorium,
Well, that's what we're working on.
yes.
Allison Moore.
Tom, I think if this place would have put in like 20 of those units, you wouldn't be talking like this. And we're lucky they just put in one.
So far.
We don't understand Bitcoining and mining. We need to have that be part of this moratorium while we figure out what it is. Because if Alliance has 150 acres shovel ready, they could go in and put in 100 units. I mean, we need to know what these things are, because otherwise we're gonna screw ourselves.
I just want to check, because I noticed in this, and then it may vary depending on the community, but the Lynn County zoning amendment that addresses data centers, I can read the full definition if you'd like, but the definition of data center includes commercial cryptocurrency mining operations and processing. So there's a couple sentence definition here that talks about storage, management of digital data, housing computer or network equipment, but that last sentence specifically says that it includes commercial cryptocurrency mining operations. So depending on how you define a data center, it could already fall under that
We
umbrella.
should steal their definition of it, and just put it in our moratorium.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Jared.
Good job.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Hey, you guys have been fantastic today. Yeah, everything I said about you before the meeting, I take it all back. So, without anything else to say, everybody satisfied? With an eye, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. I got a devil's advocate.